people can join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of
America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Appreciate that opening, Councilmember Lortz. We are going to first have a presentation by Josh Belknap.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about public works and the work that's happened over the last year, kind of the department. 2019 was a really big year. I think everybody can agree with that. A lot of things going on, good, busy year. But let me share my screen here, pull up my, let's see. There we go. Great. Yeah. Can I just have you go to that next page, Lyle? Thank you. Reminder of the responsibilities of the Public Works Department generally in Kaysville City. We're split into three sub-departments, first being streets. The streets department is obviously in charge of road maintenance, mostly on a smaller scale with potholes or small patching jobs for water leaks, etc. All road signage, so street names, speed limit signs, etc. Curb painting. We've had the opportunity to work with a lot of young men on Eagle Scout projects and other service activities for youth in the community over the years, and we hope to see that going forward. And that's done a significant amount of work for the community in curb painting as well. Streets is also over tree trimming in some locations, and plow fleet management for snow plows. Stormwater, the next department, is over the storm and land drain systems, currently collecting and conveying water from where it's deposited or where runoff enters into these systems and essentially getting it out to the Great Salt Lake. They're over street sweeping. They're over all and enforcement in regards to our permits and state and federal requirements. And then they also are in charge of garbage can delivery for the city. The water department, pretty self-explanatory. They operate and maintain the culinary system, all the tanks, valves, hydrants, etc. And then also the compliance side of our requirements with the State Department of Drinking Water. And water meter reading, collecting that data, making sure that that's available for admin staff at City Hall. Who we are and how we're doing it is the Streets Department has 4 full-time staff for those items that they're responsible for. And the funds for that department is kind of a combination of Class C, so that's gas tax, the active transportation option that the city receives each year, which is also shared with the Parks Department at times, the road fee, and then the general fund as well. Stormwater, same number of staff members, 4 full-time staff members there, and that's funded by the Stormwater Utility Fund. Water is 6 full-time staff members and is obviously funded by the Water Enterprise Fund. And also of note, we have 2 great secretaries that support us. We have a full-time Public Works Secretary, and we also have support from the Power Department Secretary, as well as amazing staff up at City Hall. And we rely heavily each year on as many part-time staff members as we can get our hands on. The great things that you see happen in Kaysville in regards to streets, stormwater, and water are 100% the result of these individuals, the work that they do, the knowledge that they have. Next there, Lyle. Kind of a synopsis of the last year project-wise. We talked in January about a lot of the street projects that we had undertaken last year. So most of this is kind of a review of that, but that was 5.25 lane miles of repaving. So the repave jobs where we're coming in and reconstructing or resurfacing roads in Kaysville that have deteriorated. And then over 5 miles of restriping, adding things like bike lanes, speed limit symbols, etc. We saw about a 1.5 to 2% increase in the number of new roads constructed. So as part of development and other activities last year that the city's now responsible for and to maintain those. Just over 11 million square feet of preventative treatments. I've got a typo there. It's 13,800 lineal feet of curb and sidewalk that was installed as part of city projects last year. That doesn't include new development. That's just city projects. And then a massive amount of time spent reviewing and updating standards and ordinances. And the stormwater department, we had a very large and very significant project that we undertook last year with the Nature Conservancy on the west side there, the shorelands of the Great Salt Lake, first of its kind, and has started to be used as kind of a model and a template by the Nature Conservancy as they coordinate with other municipalities and agencies, which is all about increasing the quality of water that is discharged into the natural environment as it interacts with both plant and animal life. So we were pretty proud of that. Maybe a little less exciting, but just as important, 500 miles of street sweeping last year. We try and sweep every public street at least once and try to shoot for multiple times. But that's unfortunately limited by the speed of the equipment, which is approximately 2 miles an hour. The frequency, excuse me, that they're having to dump debris and maintenance limitations. In addition, we've had a fairly significant undertaking that I think between Public Works, community development, and other departments, and in conjunction with a lot of elected officials and administrative staff, we've been working on the implementation of LID, which is low impact development requirements that were instituted by the EPA and now mandated by the state. This has been a really interesting and difficult process that we're still working on to implement. And then stormwater has also been in charge of managing all SWIPs. So that's a stormwater pollution prevention plan that's required for all applicable construction or remodel sites that require frequent inspection on those to make sure that we're compliant. Water, we saw about half a mile or so of existing water line replaced in Kaysville, as well as 1.5 miles of new water line installed as part of the development. We have spent a lot of time continuing to work on the design and coordination, as well as the implementation of many water quality projects aimed at both efficiency and overall quality of the water delivered. That department and the other members of the Public Works Department responded to a little bit over 50 leak repairs. Those are kind of drop everything and respond immediately type situations. And also working on updating standards and ordinances for that department as well. Next there, Lyle. As you can see here, the Public Works Department isn't unique in that it has after hours requirements. Police and fire, power, and others have those same requirements. Of those 50 water leaks approximately that we had last year, half of those were after hours, mostly in the middle of the night, a lot of those in cold weather situations. Of the after hours work, we also estimated about 1,000 hours were spent by the Public Works Department clearing roads in Kaysville. Great for those individuals. Obviously, there's more than 1,000 hours that were spent total, but 1,000 outside of normal work hours. The Stormwater Department rescued 3 duck families from storm drains, which is really great and exciting. Accident cleanup, so vehicle accidents as we come out and sweep and try and remove debris from the roadways. Responding to I believe 3 illicit discharges, which is discharge of materials or substances that can impact water quality in the storm drain system. And then spending time after hours in several situations just to try and keep up with day-to-day operations, some of the maintenance and inspection and other tasks for the water department, stormwater department. I think also of note, and this is not just Public Works, various other departments, but a considerable amount of time on top of our day-to-day operations has been spent the last year or more working with UDOT on 2 massive projects, the West Davis Corridor project, which we meet with on a just about weekly basis in some form or fashion, and the Highway 89 project, which we spend, I don't even know, but it's daily coordination and time spent on that project at this point. We've also spent the last couple of years working on a design, a detailed and complex design for a new water tank to be built on the east side as part of the 89 reconstruction there. So a lot of difficult but exciting things going on regularly in Public Works. But again, of everything, I think I found myself at the end of 2019 first grateful for the support of elected officials, of other administration and city staff, to see what was accomplished last year. I think it was emotionally difficult for a lot of people within our department, residents as well. But extremely proud of the individuals that made that happen. That's a very much a team effort, and I think is indicative of the staff and residents of Kaysville City. So very, very cool to see what was accomplished last year, the sheer volume of great work, and it doesn't come without difficulties. We acknowledge that, but look to continue making life in Kaysville better. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. All right. I am looking for hands. Any questions or comments or kudos, any of those things? Councilmember Lortz.
Josh, I just want to say, really appreciate all that your team has done in the last year. I know people are loving the new road on Sunset, for at least the half that's done. And you guys have done a tremendous job, I think. Great job.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tran. Oh, you're muted still. Okay. All right. There we go. There's Councilmember Tran.
Yeah, I'm trying to, just a second.
Technical difficulties this evening.
Yeah. Oh, am I unmuted?
You are now unmuted.
Okay, I don't think I muted myself. Anyway, yeah, I was just gonna also tell you thank you to you, Josh, and your department. The roads are awesome. Every time we leave our house, we're happy and grateful for all of the work that you've done, and really all the efforts to try to minimize the pain and suffering that we all experienced while that was happening. I know there were lots of projects going on, but great job. It's really nice to be able to drive smoothly.
Yes, thank you. And Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Josh. Again, echo, huge thank you. Watching this all last year with all the updates and the huge just ask that we gave you as council, it was really big and you guys did a good job. So thank you. I didn't hear in the report, did you talk about the automatic metering, an update where we're at with that?
Yeah, so
water.
The AMI process, we're about 99% complete. We got data collectors installed and meters installed in almost all locations. So City Hall has the ability to collect that information remotely, and that has resulted in I can't remember the exact number, but it was like over 1,000% increase in efficiency, reducing the number of hours required to read those meters each month, and get more accurate billing statements prepared. So yeah, we have a few meters still left to install. Those are kind of difficult locations that are going to require a little bit extra time to get the switch made. But yeah, we're very excited about that project.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you for that update.
Mm-hmm.
And just a technical housekeeping note, if you're not currently talking, if you could mute yourself, there's a little bit of an echo going on. All right, any other comments? No. All right. Oh, yes, Councilmember Blackham.
I just want to ditto, being their liaison and that. I really appreciate what they do. I know they work hard. They got a lot of stuff to do. I appreciate what they do. And I really want to appreciate what Josh does, but I really appreciate what the guys who work for him do. Those are the guys that are actually in the trenches. Those are the guys getting muddy, dirty, cold, wet. They do a lot of work out there, and I really appreciate what they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, thanks, Josh. We appreciate it. Okay, we will now go to declaration of any conflicts of interest. Anybody have a conflict of interest? I see none. Okay, we're going to move on to consent items. Anybody want to remove anything from consent? All right, I don't see any hands. Oh, Councilmember Barber. Yes.
Thank you. I would like to remove item B, please.
B as in boy or D as in dog?
D as in dog.
Thank you. All right.
D as in Davis.
Okay, that's right.
We are in Kaysville.
Okay, any others? Okay, I'd entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve consent items A through C.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Barber, seconded by Councilmember Lortz. Any comments? Seeing none, we will go to a vote. Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Lortz.
Aye.
Councilmember Tran. And Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Okay, motion is unanimous. Okay, Councilmember Barber, D.
Yeah, so this is for the award of bid for Sunset Drive Phase 2 curb gutter sidewalk project. And thankfully we have Josh already here on the phone. And this is a huge project. We just talked about how much people love our improved roads. This is the second half of a badly needed road. So I just want to just have an update where we're at on that. And then specifically, those who were watching last year, I know none of the council members were here. One of the big questions we had on this road was just pedestrian access and access to the schools and traffic. And so I just wanted an update where we're at on that and what residents can expect.
Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sunset Drive Phase 2, as we're calling it, is essentially going from Western Drive down towards the sewer district property. We're kind of stopping short of going all the way to the corner where it turns into Shepherd Lane as we work on coordination efforts for the connector road project, not knowing exact alignments of things past that point. We learned a lot last year with the projects that we had, what worked, what didn't work, where we could improve, kind of the contract and bid process, so that we were eliminating or at least minimizing some of the headaches that come with these projects. Right now, the tentative plan, as we're hearing, obviously this hasn't been finalized as we're just awarding the bid right now. But I believe the contractor is hoping to get started either the end of this month or the first part of June, get mobilized out and start work there. Yeah, in the contract, we have a substantial completion date, I believe, of October 1st. But that includes, are there some landscaping items? Are there some kind of punch list type of items? We have specified that we want paving complete prior to the start of the school year. Now, granted, the start of the school year could change because of some of the pandemic issues right now. But generally that's the third week of August that we're wanting at least the roads open and access uninterrupted, like we saw the opposite last year with Sunset Drive, where that project, because of various factors, started late and drug on through summer and into late fall. So the components for pedestrian and alternative transportation access, obviously there's kind of the simple aspects like the installation of bike lanes for active transportation. Those will continue on that stretch. We have analyzed specifically the intersection of Western Drive and Sunset Drive, and had a consultant collecting counts of both vehicles and pedestrians to see if that is a location that meets the criteria for a signalized intersection there. The results of those numbers did not justify or meet the criteria at this point for a signal. But I think the route that we'll take there is that could change in the future, and we don't want to jeopardize the integrity of the infrastructure by coming back later and having to, say, cut into pavement and things like that. So we'll be installing underground conduit so that if we get down the road and there are changes, we can easily make that installation without more significant impact to the road surface and other utilities there. In addition, we've talked with people in the area and administrative officials about the possibility of installing high visibility crosswalks like you see in various areas throughout town at that location, and those can be installed with fairly minimal expense, whether to cross Western or to cross Sunset or both. But that was the specific location that we had been looking at. We had data previously on it. We've updated that data, and we'll continue to watch that location. It's a location that we get a lot of questions and input from the public on. The project as a whole itself, like I said, we're hoping to have wrapped up as close to late summer as we can. That October 1st deadline that we put in place, we're hoping that is the kind of worst case scenario. But there is a possibility for some of that work to be going on past the start of the school year. So yeah, it's a project that has taken a considerable amount of time to design, which is why we find ourselves here in May, just awarding the bid. A lot of difficulty in trying to match elevations with surrounding yards, trying to work in curb and gutter where it didn't previously exist, trying to install sidewalk, and a massive amount of coordination with residents in the area to those affected by the project. You know, if they're having improvements installed in front of their home, a significant amount of relocation of power poles and power lines required for the project. A significant amount of relocation and replacement for secondary irrigation, and also trying to coordinate with adjacent owners who might be looking to develop in the future to try and stub utilities out now rather than be cutting into the road surface later on down the road. So yeah, that's kind of the synopsis of where we're at Sunset Drive phase 2 wise. I'm excited to get that kicked off and excited to work towards a successful project there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Adams, did you have something that you wanted to ask? And you're muted.
I did. I just, first of all, Josh, thank you so much. And your voice, I just can tell how excited you are about everything.
Yeah. Yay.
Anyway, yay. On the Sunset, I had two questions. You sort of mentioned the study that went on having to do with Western and Sunset. And one of the ideas that I remember was brought about in previous city council last year, Michelle, maybe you remember, was a roundabout. I don't know if was any of that factored in. Did they look at the roundabout as an option at that intersection? Or do you know anything about that? I know that there were a couple people that were pretty interested in having that be, and then I just have a second question after that.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of the general approach that you take in evaluating an intersection like this is starting with the basic information of vehicle numbers, the volumes, the speeds, pedestrian volumes, frequency of pedestrian and vehicle traffic, and kind of its concentration throughout the day. And in looking at that, you know, Western is a good location to look at for a potential roundabout. In some ways, and in other ways, it's quite difficult. It's a very wide intersection from east to west. One of the difficulties there, as we looked at that, is a roundabout trying to fit it in there, regardless of what you do, is going to require the acquisition of some right of way from adjacent property owners. So that's difficulty number one. Cutting into the corners of some of the properties. It gets a little bit easier with this intersection because the west side of Western, there's kind of a traffic island in the middle, and that doesn't start until 30 plus feet west of the curb line. And if you try to utilize that to minimize the impact to other properties, the difficulty there is you end up with a roundabout that is not centered in the intersection there, which can complicate the turn movements a little bit, and you end up having to chase the road back further to readjust it to come in at the proper angle. And that in and of itself requires some potential impact for acquiring right away. So in looking at it, like I said, we get a lot of questions about this and other locations. It's something that could fit there, but we were pretty surprised at the numbers that came back, that they were significantly lower than we were expecting. The pedestrian and vehicle numbers there, that it was, we were talking less than half of the required volume to consider kind of changing things up there at that location. So the question with pedestrians is obviously it's a very emotional issue because you want to provide good facilities for everyone, whether it's massive groups or the one, but we do have some limitations, not only one in timing of trying to get a project out the door now, which not even changing the intersection there, we're pushed into May to get this project out the door. But number two, I think the biggest positive is we have the ability to make those changes still down the road. If something changes and criteria are met or even closer to being met, we can make those changes. This project in no way means, hey, for the rest of time, when archaeologists come through and they excavate through Kaysville, they're going to find Western Drive and Sunset as it is. And I don't even think that is unique to Western Drive and Sunset. That's throughout the city of Kaysville, is trying to be dynamic and monitoring the situation and adjusting the needs of the budget and the schedule with the needs of the residents and the infrastructure there. So.
Yeah, so my follow-up question, thank you for that. I think that that answers, and I'm glad to hear too that the foresight to put in the conduit for a possible light. I think that, if for some reason, whatever budgetary reasons, or we can't get the money, whatever happens here in the future, and we're not able to do that connector road, you're going to have a lot of people driving down Sunset. I think that number is going to increase substantially, and we'll probably need something to, whether it's a roundabout or a light, to help people be able to cross that street. One concern I've had, and I don't know if this is in the plans, but is that it seems, and I turn on that section every day, is that it seems like when someone stops to turn, that cars pull out around them. They keep going, but just, do you know what I'm talking about? And I've wondered how you prevent that, whether it's through better street lines, or, I mean, that's the only aspect of the roundabout that I've thought. I've seen so many cars do that, and I think, man, all it takes is, I'm stopped for somebody to cross, and some guy comes flying around and hits the kid that I stopped for. Yeah,
one of the difficulties with Sunset Drive is the width of the road itself is too narrow to fit like a dedicated turn pocket, like a dedicated left turn lane or dedicated right turn lane, in addition to active transportation striping. So we looked at on phase one, Smith Lane is a significant turning location. And was there a way to fit something in there? And as we were measuring out, the city council in 2015 or 2016 adopted an active transportation plan that designated Sunset Drive as having dedicated bike lanes. And those bike lanes are great for various reasons, not just the active transportation component, but they do help. Studies show that they have an impact on vehicle speeds. But one of the drawbacks of them is they take up a significant amount of room. And with those bike lanes, we lose the ability to add a dedicated turn pocket. And that's the best way to address that concern and allow traffic to continue to move and not back up, and provide a safer space for a vehicle to wait to make that turn. But on Sunset, I think it's 41 feet of pavement that we have, and between the travel lane width and those bike lanes, and whatever small amount is left over for the shoulder, we run out of space if we're to follow the kind of the standard requirements of the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices on minimum widths of bike lanes and minimum widths of shoulder areas, etc. So yeah, something that we looked at and come up with a limitation on right of way there.
Well, and I don't know how beneficial signs are, but I just, something to think about in the future. A sign there or something that says no passing while cars turning or whatever. I don't even know if those signs exist, but I just think that to me would help tremendously with the fear that I believe a lot of the parents in the area are concerned with, is that it typically happens when someone's stopped and trying to turn and cars just are whizzing by. That's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good thing to consider. I think statutorily passing is restricted. That doesn't mean that everybody's aware or going to follow that. So I think there's currently the ability to enforce that from a legal standpoint. But that isn't always the best or only deterrent in these situations. I think one thing of note that I find exciting or beneficial is probably the better term. As we look at this connector road project, the connector road kind of set up the result that we see of that is a decrease in traffic on Sunset Drive as these roads are intended to kind of more evenly distribute traffic and avoid kind of a log jam. That's one thing that I think we're anxious to see the effects of that and the benefits that come from that as well. So.
All right. Councilmember Barber.
Thanks, Josh. So just to bring this around, and I know we've got a rest of an agenda to get to, I think what I would say is this was a commitment that we made, that we would look at this and we would communicate to residents really what's happening here. And when I look at the striping plan that's itemized on this bid, I just see the striping for, the bike path, which, by the way, I'm really excited about that. Josh saw me and my whole family on Sunset Drive, rocking the bike lane. I love it. So I'm glad that's there. It'd be really bad if it wasn't. And, some other things. And you mentioned, yes, we can put a crosswalk, but I don't want to just put a crosswalk because I asked for it, because I want one. I want to know really what's the best flow for kids to get to those 3 schools. I mean, really, there's only 2 right there, but what's the best flow and what is the traffic volume? And, that's a good description that you gave us, that that analysis was done, but it wasn't in the packet. Interestingly enough, there's an applicant later on that did a really good traffic flow study that's in the packet. That's kind of what I would like to see with something like this. And that's what we committed to give residents. And so that's what I would like. Even if it's the same decision, I just want to see the data that made that decision so that we're able to fulfill that commitment that we made, because this is such a interesting place. It's a huge connector road. Unfortunately, it has a bunch of schools piled right on it. So I would just like to see that analysis. Should we put a crosswalk there at Western, a high visibility one? I would love to see that, if that would help and not hinder. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think what I would feel comfortable with, do you want to go to Councilmember Blackham?
No, you finish.
Okay, I think what I would feel comfortable with is I want to award this bid. The last thing I want to do is stand in the way of this project getting done or this project running over past school opening. So thank you so much for bringing it, putting that. I want to award this bid with the expectation that we come back to council with that laid out plan for pedestrian and traffic flow.
How's that, Josh?
And all I
And
wanted
Councilmember Blackham.
all I wanted to say was I respect Councilmember Barber telling us that there were some commitments made. And when there's commitments, I agree with her. You feel obligated, and I appreciate the history that she gives us, saying that there were commitments to those people to get them some sort of a study, some sort of something that they could look at physically and see that it was looked at, the decision was made. Because it's no different than the history I gave the council on a rezone that was presently done a few months ago, where we voted against it, but because they didn't have the history. So I really respect the history, and I think that we have an obligation to withhold the commitment that council made.
Okay. All right. So what I am hearing is I hear Councilmember Barber, do I understand correctly that you're okay to approve it tonight, but you would like the study to come back to council for us to look at? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And Josh, does that work for you?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Excellent. Thank you.
It looks like
Real quick question.
Councilmember Adams.
Oh, thank you. Does that, I mean, what's the use of getting the study after, if we've already approved it, I guess? I mean, then we don't get the chance to make a decision, right? If we do want to see a high visibility crosswalk based off of the study. I mean, if the study comes, can we make it contingent if the study comes back and says that there should be a high visibility crosswalk, or that it wouldn't deter, that it wouldn't hurt to have that there, that we
Shane.
approve
Yeah,
it?
Shane can answer that.
I think, and Josh, you can speak up. Sorry, I'm just, based on my conversations with Josh, he's already done this study that you're asking for. He's already evaluated this intersection. He's already determined, in his professional opinion, what needs to happen in this intersection. So if there was a breakdown in communication, I think he maybe just needs to get that information to you or to some residents that are in the area so they can see. But I think that it's not that he hasn't done the study, it's that he just hasn't given that to you, or you guys haven't seen it or shared it with residents that want to see it as well.
Councilmember Barber.
I would agree with that up until the decision about, do we put a crosswalk on at Western? Because it sounds like that is an option. And like I said, just because I want one, and it sounds like Josh is willing to put one in, I don't feel like that's the right way to go about. I would like to make sure it's warranted. How is it going to flow with the other crosswalks? Do we have staff to man the crosswalk? I mean, those are the questions that I would like
Yeah. So
to be answered.
the results of that analysis, this didn't meet the criteria, not only for a signal, but it didn't meet criteria for a kind of a control speed school crossing zone with a crossing guard. So
You say it did or did not, Josh? I didn't.
Not.
Okay.
No. So what we'd be doing when we talk about installing a crosswalk, it's painting 12-inch wide bars, high visibility paint in that location, and designating that visually for pedestrians to use that. That's an easy thing to add, whether that's now, whether that's in a couple weeks, a couple months, whenever. That's something that we can come and do at the drop of a hat. But as I've talked with people before, I like the aspect of these crosswalks, even though they're unmanned, because it kind of designates visually to somebody where they cross and where they don't cross. But there is the potential for those to add kind of a false sense of security to an individual of, oh, there's white paint, I'm safe to cross here. And if a vehicle isn't paying any more attention or acting any more diligently, somebody's potentially stepping out thinking they're safe, and it may not actually improve.
And I think there was a similar situation on Crestwood, wasn't it? Michelle, Councilmember Barber, do you remember? It was either last year or the year before. There was a group of residents who would have liked to have a crosswalk at, was it Thornfield and Crestwood? And because it was on a turn, we were
actually.
Yeah, was it Mutton Hollow? No, I was pretty sure it was Crestwood, because
maybe
it was
both, actually.
Yeah, but we should be uniform in our decisions. So, that, but yes, if we could just have that in the packet and with the reasoning behind it, that would be helpful.
I don't think making those decisions right now as a council is the best way to deliberate it and go back and forth. Just like you said, we need to make sure it just is communicated really well.
Okay.
Can that study be published on the website somewhere, just as a point of reference?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think we have a location currently that shows all of the traffic studies, but we can work with IT to house information like that anywhere. If it's part of like a council presentation, obviously that finds a home in the packet. So I think there's some options there.
I think it might be helpful just because I know that people frequently ask for them and they're done frequently, and it'd be a nice point of reference. It seems like usually it seems like the traffic studies support the decision to move forward in many cases. And so I think it's just good information to have.
I think it goes a long way with justification for the decisions that were made. I think that would work well on that road page that we were talking about, Josh.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They tend, that'd be good.
Okay. All right.
Sorry to talk
so
over
we need a motion, please.
I will make a motion that we approve the bid for the Sunset Drive improvement project. Sorry, I lost it. Sunset Drive Phase 2 repave curb and sidewalk project, with the request to have the traffic and pedestrian analysis presented at a later date.
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Barber, seconded by Councilmember Blackham. Any comments at this time? Okay, we'll go to a vote. Councilmember Lortz.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams.
You're going out of order.
I'm messing with you. Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
And Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Okay, motion is unanimous. Thank you. Thanks for that discussion as well. All right, we are now moving to our action items. The first is mutual aid agreement between Kaysville City and Utah Wastewater Agency Response Network. Okay.
I'm back up.
And it's Josh again. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just trying to pull this up here. Yeah, as we presented at the last council meeting, we're proposing entering a mutual aid agreement with UT Warren. It's a collection of 90 member entities to assist with the sharing of personnel, equipment, other assets, and connecting with resources within state, local, and federal government. Something that we've been looking at for some time, and feel prudent to enter into this agreement, especially in light of some of the recent issues that we've encountered. So.
All right, thank you. All right, I think we had a fairly good discussion on this last time. Anne Marie, do we have any comments, public comments on this?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll go to questions from council. Any questions from council? I see no questions from council. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the mutual aid agreement between Kaysville City and the Utah Water Wastewater Agency Response Network.
Thank you.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Tran and seconded by Councilmember Adams. Any comments? No. Let's go to a vote. Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Councilmember Lortz.
Aye.
Motion is unanimous. Thank you. All right, now comes the fun one. Adoption of the tentative budgets for fiscal year 2021. Go to staff for that.
I don't know who has this one. Shane, do you want me to take this?
Yeah, Dean, that'd be great.
Please.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight on the agenda, we have the adoption of the tentative budget. This becomes really the first step. I mean, we've had work sessions and other things, but this becomes the first step for the public. So the action tonight is to adopt a tentative budget, schedule public hearings, and then after the adoption of the tentative budget, the budget becomes available to the public for inspection. So we met a couple weeks ago, reviewed the tentative budget, and what we have before you tonight is very similar to what we discussed. We made some minor changes to the budget, but we went back to each department and reviewed the budget and made sure that we could handle the request. And anyway, we believe it's ready for adoption tonight.
Okay, thank you. Council members, at first we need just one moment. Anne Marie, do we have anybody to speak about this item?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, Council Member Blackham, please.
I might be muted. I don't know if I'm
Nope,
muted.
you're good. You're good. We hear you. These are questions at this point.
I don't have a
Questions.
question, but I have something I want to talk about. It's not a question.
Okay. Let's have it. What's your?
Okay. I am very passionate about adding a COLA to the tentative budget. I believe we ask so much of our employees, and we already know that we're about 10 to 15% down on employees. We know we're about 5 to 10% below on wages. I've talked to every department head, and I've asked them how their people feel about it. And how they feel is, you know, we've asked them to do extra, they work extra hard, they're great people, but this is what they count on. And I feel like, you know, it's just a COLA, it's just a cost of living adjustment in order so that the employees don't go backwards. And that's what we don't want them to do, because if they're 5% behind now, then next year they 7% behind, and then the next. But I think a COLA just keeps up with it. And I know, just one item in particular, I looked at the health insurance, and yeah, the city's absorbing a lot of that, but yet when you look at the family payment, it's $3 and some odd cents more a month to the employee or each pay period. So it adds up to $100 a year to them that they're actually going to go back if they don't receive some sort of a cost of living adjustment. And I just don't want them to go backwards. I want them to know that we really care about what they do. We appreciate what they do. We appreciate how hard they work, and the fact that they have to do more than what they're asked to do, than a lot of places are asked to do, and that they're doing the jobs of maybe 1.5 persons or 1.25 or something, because we are 10 or 15% below. And I just, it affects them, and it affects morale, and talking to some of the employees and talking to the department heads, and that this is their chance to get a little bit. And this is not including raises. It's not including the merits or anything. This is just a COLA to keep up with the cost of living index. And I know, being on a retirement in the state, I was given a COLA, and so I just feel it's really important that we show them how much we support them by just trying to keep it even. And I've tried to call every council member and talk to them and how I feel. And so I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. And I really get the passion and the care that you have for our employees. And I really appreciate, as a former employee yourself, how strongly you feel about this. And I agree with you that our employees work extra hard, and I feel like they absolutely deserve a COLA increase. I think that, and I've mentioned this before, I think that when other families in Kaysville are actually losing their jobs, and that would be incredibly unkind to give our staff a raise and be extracting money from our citizens in order to pay for a raise.
That's my point, is it's not a raise.
Right.
All this is just keeping up. It's not a raise. What
Mike,
it is it's trying to keep
Councilmember,
up.
Councilmember Adams.
Sorry.
I respect that. And, let's have a discussion.
Okay.
I'm perfectly willing to allow council members to weigh in on this. If you so choose to go down this route, we will have to find the money somewhere else. And also keep in mind that our budget is most likely going down because of coronavirus. And so, so keep that in mind while we have this discussion. Councilmember Barber.
Thanks, Mayor Witt. My question is either for Dean or for Shane. We had our council budget retreat a couple of weeks ago, and I thought the best part of that was just the introduction that you both gave about this is where we're at, and we are in such a unique case. Believe us, no one saw this coming 3 or 4 months ago in the current situation that we are. And just talk about why it's difficult to really finalize a budget right now, and kind of our plan to adopt tentative, and then when we'll be getting more information. Either Dean or Shane.
Shane.
Okay, thanks. Yes, it is. It's just really, it is really hard. It's really challenging right now. I think mostly because we don't know what that COVID was almost from one day to the next. So I think our budget is going to definitely be impacted. We've penciled in using savings for just passing the tentative budget tonight. Dean, maybe you can remind us how much that is. I think it was about $125,000 to $150,000.
I didn't realize I could share my screen here, so I'm going to go to revenue detail. And if I can scroll down here.
But then while Dean's doing that, maybe just let me finish that. We do believe that it maybe in August when we do the truth and taxation process, we will know more then. And we're thinking maybe by the end of this calendar year, we'll know much more. And I don't know if it's something the council would like to entertain. Councilmember Blackham, we appreciate your support of the staff very much. And if you want to go that direction, that's obviously your prerogative. Dean and I were talking earlier today or yesterday about perhaps we could maybe any changes we make down the road, we could make retroactive to July 1st, which would alleviate some concern on the part of the city staff. But all of that's going to be contingent on further data. It was things we just don't know today what we don't know.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shane. That's exactly what I was wanting to share to this discussion. Someone that maybe didn't listen to the budget retreat earlier.
Let me just show you a few numbers. I'm working off Lyle's computer, so I'm not quite as familiar with this, but you'll notice that we plugged in this $210,000. That's based on our discussion that we would hold a truth and taxation hearing. So we've plugged that revenue in, but we've also left the expenditure side to be at council's discretion. And then in addition to that, as Shane mentioned, we've also had to cover our tentative budget with fund balance, and that's the $195,000 showing here. And that brings our total tentative budget to $14.6 million. And that is about a 1.5% increase over prior year. And some of that increase is the new growth we should see with property taxes, and then also some money we'll receive from law enforcement services, school resource officers, and other things. But anyway, the general fund is about $14.6 million, but as Shane indicated, we are using some fund balance to reach that.
Okay, Shane.
Mayor, maybe just one other point to that, Dean, is, and maybe you clarify this for us. I think one clarifying point to understand is that you've kept sales tax and Class C money relatively level, where I think we're very confident we won't see those same numbers next year, if not drastic decreases. Could you maybe just make sure that I think we left those level because we just don't know what they are, and it would just be a guess at this point. Dean, am I right on that?
Well, that's correct. You'll see on sales tax number, we've just left that at the same number. We just have to wait and see what that's going to look like in the next few months.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Tran and then Councilmember Adams.
Thank you. So we're having the discussion now. This is the discussion point, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. My comments were just that we absolutely appreciate what staff does, and Mike, I really appreciate how much you're an advocate for them. I just think that even maybe this fall, we're going to be having difficult conversations about the reality of what we've just experienced, and that we're going to continue to experience for the next couple months, especially if we have a second wave. I don't mean to be a doomsayer, but I just don't think that right now is the best time to approve a cost of living increase. I like the idea of it being retroactive. If things turn around and get better, then absolutely, let's go back and let's do everything we can for our employees. But I really think we're going to have to make hard decisions moving forward. And the decisions probably aren't going to be decisions we want to make in terms of cutting back on our budget. So I think it's best to be cautious and conservative, and we're dealing with so many unknowns right now that I don't think it's a good idea to commit to anything like that. You know, as an employer, we have to make hard decisions like this all the time, and it's tough. And you know, we do a lot of other things to show our appreciation when we don't have the money to sustain any kind of increase for any amount of time. You know, the worst thing to do for morale is to go backwards. And so I think that there's definitely some other things that we can do to show our appreciation, with the hope that perhaps we could look back, and I like the idea of making stuff retroactive. So that's my thought.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Adams.
Yeah, I feel like my emotions run hot with this only, or high, not hot, high with this only because we all know what, I mean, it's public knowledge what all of these guys make. I sometimes look at, I mean, I don't look at it every day, right? But I've looked at it and I've thought, my word, how, some of these people, how are they making a living? And they're working really hard. When Councilmember Blackham contacted me, he mentioned a number that would be around $125,000 to meet this cost of living increase. And I don't, maybe Dean, maybe you can tell us if you gave that number to him or if that is an accurate number. I think what I'm hearing from Councilmember Tran and maybe you as well, Mayor, is that we couldn't do that at this time. I would say that we would then have to freeze everything, no spending at all, unless it's absolutely mandatory. Because I think it would be very disingenuous of us if we weren't willing to do this, but then we're willing to put money towards a connector road or towards, getting furniture for our new city hall or something along those lines. I mean, I feel like, if we can't take care of our own people, we've got to sit there and have them watch us spend money on other things, and they're having to pay $100 more a year in their health insurance. I just think it's kind of callous in some ways. And so I understand that other people are losing their jobs, but I don't think too that the citizens of Kaysville would say, my word, you took money out of my pocket and gave it to these people who are working as well. I think they'd be grateful that other people have jobs and that they're being taken care of by their city. And that's my 2 cents. And so my follow-up question, I guess, would be to know if Dean, if those numbers are accurate, and also what our intent is here with what Mike's proposing. Are you asking that we amend or not approve the tentative budget, or that we approve it tentatively with the idea that there be a COLA added? I don't know that what we're discussing per se. Maybe that needs to be made more clear for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Blackham, do you want to explain what you are proposing?
Proposing that we adopt the budget with a COLA for the employees. Adopt the tentative budget with the COLA.
All right, we can't, as I understand it, it all has to balance out. Is that not right, Shane? We can't just say plus and throw in $125,000 if it's not accounted for somewhere. Is that correct, Shane?
Yeah, we could do that, but we would, that number of 195 that Dean circled when he was showing that would just be increased. So we would be using for more savings to cover that additional amount. So anything you add to the budget right now, we don't have revenue for, planned revenue for at least. And so we'd have to have savings to cover that. So that's where that would come from. But we can do that. If Councilmember Blackham made that motion, that was adopted, that's Dean would go to work and if we decided it was a 2% COLA or whatever it was, and Dean, I think, does know that number. If you want to talk about that, one of Councilmember Adams' questions was, what is that number? And I think Dean's ready to talk about that. So yes, I think he could do that very easily.
Yeah, I looked at a couple scenarios, the 1% and the 2%. 2% with required benefits, FICA, long-term disability, workers' comp, and retirement. The general fund, it would be $153,000, the general fund at 2%, and an additional $58,000 to the enterprise funds. So a total of about $211,000, but 153 of that would be general fund monies.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For everyone? Okay,
And,
so
you
that's
know-
what we're talking about.
So can I have a question for Dean?
Yes, go ahead.
So last year, the revenues were about 15 million and now they're 14 million. You're saying this year, we're losing about $500,000. You're saying we're collecting less than we did last year, because last year the budget was a little higher than this year. And if I look at this, if we were say collecting the same revenues, we should be getting about 15 million and not 14 and a half. So am I missing something there?
I think one piece would be the one-time transfer from fund balance for City Hall. So if you back that out, it put it about 14.4, and this budget's at 14.6. So you're seeing a little bit of an increase, about 245, about a 1.7% increase when you back out that $1 million transfer from last year or current year.
So I know we do have, the city's in good financial position. We have money that we have put away for a rainy day. I don't know how much rainier it needs to get. So, and to me, for 100 people, it doesn't seem like a lot to try to make sure they don't go backwards.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Lortz, please.
So Dean, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I look through what you've got presented right now on the budget, on the sales and use taxes, we're essentially down 0.5% from 2018 or 2019, I guess fiscal 2019, and then keeping it flat for fiscal 20 and fiscal 21.
This is the revenue for 2019. This is the budget for 2020. These are not actual numbers here, but budget numbers.
Okay. So we're talking about it being slightly down, which fits with what the analysis we received for what we know so far into March. But we're not going to know, when are we going to know more information, Dean?
Well, there's always a 2-month lag. So we'll see March's numbers probably the end of this month. But as you recall, the virus really took effect the middle of March. So I think it'll probably play out, 2 or 3 months before we get any kind of trend on what's happening with sales tax. I think we can tell pretty close.
Do we know what the state of Utah's COLA is that they're providing for the next fiscal year?
I don't know about the state, but the URS COLA was 2.3%.
That's my answer right there.
Okay.
Meaning 2.3%?
So the state
meaning if
is
Mike's
giving-
if Mike's made a motion, or excuse me, Councilmember Blackham has made a motion that we do this. I would second his motion and say that for me, it couldn't get rainier. That's a great phrase, and I don't believe that the citizens of Kaysville will feel like we're making all of the Kaysville City employees millionaires while they're losing their jobs. I think these guys are getting on average, I don't know what the number is, but not a lot of extra money to support their cost of living. And so, yeah, I would second the motion. I'm pre-seconding the motion. I don't know if that's, if I need to make the motion, but yeah.
Let Mike make the motion. Let Councilmember Blackham make the motion.
I will make a motion that we accept the 2021 tentative budget with a COLA for the employees.
And I will second that motion. I guess, can I make a substitute motion, Mike, or at
You
least
bet.
ask for clarification on the percentage, or is that required? Shane, that we.
Clarity would be great.
Be helpful, yes.
2%.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Blackham, seconded by Councilmember Adams. All right. Any comments at this time? Comments? Councilmember Barber.
So just to clarify, that's not currently in here. That means we're taking that 2%, which is probably around $120,000. We're going and saying we need an additional $120,000 from the general fund, rainy day fund, than what we're seeing right now.
Right.
153.
153. Thank you. Okay, so follow-up question to that. Explain a little more about this general fund. I like to call it that more than just rainy day, because it serves so many different purposes. That's why it's general. So about what we have in there, what other needs we have that are going to be pulling away from that, and especially we have to sustain year after year.
Is that a question for me?
Yes, Dean.
Yeah, like our balance of our general fund right now. The general fund that's being referred to as a rainy day fund.
The general fund as a whole is the fund that is generally supported by taxes, by property tax and sales tax. And it primarily includes your general operating expenses that aren't enterprise-based, which would mean it would be police, it would be fire, development, administration, parks and recreation, all those items that aren't related to an enterprise activity. So I guess the answer would be is we'd explore all the needs of those various departments, police, fire, administration, and determine, you know, how can they operate. I know there's some concerns now with several departments on even being able to operate with the current levels of budget, because they are the same as current year. An example that might be is, for example, dispatch services has gone up. Now we did make some adjustments in the police budget and the fire budget to accommodate some of that, probably not all of it. There are some other departments, administration, in terms of need for additional billing help, and as we add new customers and we send out bills, those costs go up with postage and other things, yet the budget remains the same. So I think by doing that, you're not seeing any needed incremental cost for those departments, if that makes sense at all.
Dean, did you mention a number of total fund balance?
I didn't. I can grab that. As I recall, it was 4.3, something like that. And then we back out the $1 million donation to the City Hall project. Okay, yeah, unassigned fund balance at the end of last fiscal year was $4.6 million. And then we allocated $1 million of that, so 3.6. If everything were to come in current year, revenues and expenditures, you'd be about $3.5 million fund balance.
Councilmember Adams.
So just to be clear, we are talking police officers, firemen, you know, the people who during the pandemic are going out into the public while the rest of us are at home safe. These are the people who are risking their lives, right? And we're not just talking, you know, I mean, these are the people, the emergency response people that we're talking about. That's rhetorical. I know the answer. I just think that this is something that we've got to think long and hard. I mean, Home Depot, I talked to the guy there and he said they're giving him double pay for working. I mean, that's the type of money that they're having to offer, that they're offering their employees to be out and working. And yet these police officers are going into circumstances where they're definitely touching saliva and being, you know, in harm's way. And I think that this is not a place where we cut, and especially it's kind of a slap in the face if what I'm hearing from Dean is correct, is that we last year put $1 million towards our new building, which would theoretically pay for 8 years of this raise, or not raise, but cost of living. My last statement, and I'll be done, is that we have talked, and I believe this is public, that we talked about implementing a merit-based system for future raises. Is adding the COLA here going to affect our ability to be able to do that at a later date? Because I feel like down the road, that's going to be something that's very positive for people to see, that the ones who are working harder and the ones who are showing that they want to stay with the city and continue to become better at their jobs are the ones who are getting the raises based off of merit. So I don't think this has to be a long-term thing. It can just be a this year thing. Am I correct, Dean?
I think with any kind of market adjustment or COLA adjustment, it increases the base level of your compensation. So any studies that we've done as far as market study and merit-based pay, we would just increase that study amount by this cost of living, this market adjustment. So it increases the base pay. So I guess in answer to your question, Councilmember Adams, it shouldn't affect what we do in the future.
Any other comments? All right, Councilmember Lortz, please.
So that assumes that we do a COLA across the board. If we were to consider exempting the department directors, I know it's not going to be huge, or if we consider doing this in a stage process so that you do 1% now and later do a retroactive if we find we have the funds available, would that maybe be a more prudent path, since we have so much uncertainty, not only in this current fiscal year finishing, but next fiscal year as to what revenues would be? What are your thoughts on that, Dean? Would that affect the numbers much?
Well, I think you could do whatever route you want to go. 1% would obviously be half of that, and you could phase it in. You could do 1% now and take a look 3 months down the road and say, are we in a position to do another 1%, or even better than that, we can start implementing the new pay plan.
So I'd feel comfortable doing a substitute motion to exempt the department directors from a COLA, and then provide a 1% COLA for the remaining of the staff at this time, and then reevaluate it when we have our look after we get better information.
Okay, do we have a second? Motion fails
Can I
for
ask
lack
a
of a.
question?
Okay, yes.
My question is
Wait,
just,
actually, stop. I think before we can move on, this has to either be seconded or it has to die or live on the farm, whatever. Okay, and now if nobody seconds this, he can't bring it back.
that exact thing can't be brought
That
back?
exact,
Oh.
cannot.
Oh, these process. I will second and then ask a question.
That sounds great. Okay,
My question
you may
for
ask your
Councilmember
question.
Lord, thank you. My question for Councilmember Lord is the reasoning behind leaving out the department heads. Seems like cost of living, everyone feels, regardless of how much you're making.
Just simply for me, it's the same as in regular business. If we're having a tough time, we try to ask the executives to take the first hit on it. because they understand the overall process the best. And it's not saying we're not going to try to correct it for them if we have the ability to, but you're trying to take care of those that have the, if you will, the lowest wages, because they're the ones that are impacted the most.
Okay.
Can I?
And so your motion.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
The only comment I have is I just know that a lot of our department heads, I understand what you're trying to do. And I like that, Andre. The problem is a lot of our department heads are new, so they're at the bottom of their scale.
And I have a question since we're,
Councilmember Tran, yes.
okay, so I know we've been talking about this 153,000. I thought, Dean, that you said it was a total of 211,000. There's a $58,000 amount that comes from a different fund. Is that correct?
It would be 153,000 for the general fund, and the additional 58 would be split among the various enterprise funds.
Oh, the enterprise funds. Okay, all right. Okay, thanks. Just wanted to make sure. So the total would be 211,000 as it was originally presented. And if we look at half of that minus the department heads, roughly how much does that reduce that 211,000 to?
I don't have the
A
number.
little bit less than half, I guess.
Yeah, it should be a little bit less than half.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
With the option, oh, sorry, Mayor.
Councilmember Barber.
Thanks. With the option to come back in July or even at a later date and adjust if we find out numbers are looking favorable. That was part of your motion, Councilmember Lord.
Well, yeah, once we have more information, we can reevaluate it, whether it's in my motion or not. We always have that.
Yeah, that's
right. And it could be that things look a lot better in a couple of months. It could be they look worse. We don't know, but you don't have to actually pass this budget until August. So we'll have some time to see how things are shaping up with either motion. However, we have a motion on the floor right now that any more questions about this motion, Councilmember Adams?
Questions or comments?
Let's go with comments. Sure.
Okay, I just did the math real quick, and if someone is making $48,000 a year, this 2% increase is $960 for the whole year, divided into 26 pay periods. We're talking about $36 that they get per pay period increase at 2%. And these are just, just so you know the numbers. At 1%, it'd be $18 more that they get. So for those folks who are making $48,000 a year, and I just think that's a comment that helps us maybe understand, at least from my perspective. To me, it's very small.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, Councilmember Lortz.
To that comment, Councilmember Adams, again, we're not saying that this is the permanent. It is just, this is what we would approve now. And if there's the ability, we can do more later and retroactive it back to July 1st. And hopefully it's only 3 months or 4 months, and we know more about where we're going to be and what we can afford or can't afford. I do, as Councilmember Tran said, I hate to give them a COLA and then have to go lay off 2 people because we don't have the money to be able to sustain all the positions. Because if we have other cities around the state that are cutting staff, that they are letting go people right now, and they're not getting raises, they're not getting anything, and they're losing team members. And we're in a fortunate position that we don't think we have to do that drastic of a step, but I do think we should try to be prudent. I'm trying to find a middle balance, because I agree with Councilmember Blackham that we need to take care of our employees, but we also need to take care of the financials, and we don't have the $200,000 right now to be able to do this, except using the savings. And is that, do we want to commit that right now or not? And I say, let's kind of wait a little bit and we can take care of this if it all works out like we hope it will.
And I'll just add in that Clearfield has laid off all their part-time staff. So we're lucky that we have very fiscally conservative folks, so that have made it so that we actually do have money in reserve that we can pull from. All right, so we have a motion that we need to vote on. So if you want to see the 1% minus the department heads, you will vote yes on this. Okay, so we're gonna go with this vote first. Okay, Councilmember Blackham,
Nay.
Councilmember Tran,
Nay.
Councilmember Barber,
Aye.
Councilmember Lortz,
Aye.
and Councilmember, did I already say Councilmember Adams?
No.
Councilmember Adams.
Nay.
Okay, motion fails. So we revert to the original motion, which is a 2%. Let's go with Councilmember Tran,
Nay.
Councilmember Barber,
Nay.
Councilmember Lortz,
Nay.
Councilmember Adams,
Aye.
and Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Okay, all right, so that motion fails as well. Okay, so Councilmember Tran?
Okay, I just want to make sure. So that doesn't mean, what we're saying now does not mean that in a couple months we can not, we could still give them a cost of living, right?
Yes.
A couple months from now when we have some time to, okay.
Right, in August, when we actually pass the budget, because we are not passing the budget tonight. This is just the tentative working budget. And then we can have some time, see how things unroll, and then make a decision in August.
Yeah, okay.
And it'll give clarity. Councilmember Barber, please.
Well, so that is a good point, because that means just because it's not going in right now doesn't mean it won't go in come August.
Correct. That's right.
And there's also some other adjustments. I talked, just as a way of update, I talked with our Parks and Rec staff. We're going to have some adjustments. As everyone knows, we made some really difficult decisions for parks activities this year that are going to save some money and move some money around. And so I make a commitment that I will come back with better numbers for that as well. So we have a few things in flux right now. And I think that's why we approved tentative, and then we have the final budget in August. So.
Okay, but we haven't improved the tentative budget yet. So
Not yet.
Like,
no, we haven't.
Maybe John, if you got a motion that would work? A council member Adams, do you have a motion that possibly would work?
I mean, can I make the motion that we approve the tentative budget with the, I guess we can't do the 1%, 1
No, we already voted on that.
1.5.
Yep.
I mean, it seems pretty clear where.
No,
You
you
could,
can't.
you could do 1.5 because we
You
haven't
could do
voted on that
1.5.
yet.
Yes.
I know that Councilmember Tran was a nay at the 1%.
And at the 2%.
At the 1 and the 2, you know.
Do a 1.5.
Okay.
Guys.
And I'm
right.
happy, and I'm happy to make that motion.
Except that I think you're going to get the same result.
And
right.
that would be my point. I think my comment would be, you know, I'm grateful that we still have an opportunity to revisit this because but at the same time, I would, you know, since Councilmember Tran and Councilmember Barber sort of said their piece after the vote, my piece would be that I am going to be very hesitant to spend any additional money on anything that isn't more important than our police officers and our firefighters until we give them this COLA. That's my
Well,
piece.
that's
fair.
exactly how I feel. We're spending money right now on a matching grant that we don't need to.
All right, so now I need a motion on the tentative budget, please.
Can I make another motion?
Yes.
No, I don't want to. Let somebody else. I try to.
I am glad we've had this discussion. It was worth having a discussion on and to get everybody thinking. And, once
You know what?
we pass the tentative budget, then the community gets to weigh in,
I
right?
would have
Because it's going to
gladly
be
have voted.
posted.
If I thought I was going to lose everything, I would have voted for Andre. I really would have if I thought I was going to lose it all. But
I will make a
Well-
new motion.
okay,
There you
The
go.
new
Okay.
motion will be for a 1% COLA, including the department heads.
I'll
I will
second that.
second. Oh,
Okay,
well, let it go to Mike. Go to Mike.
I don't care.
okay. All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Lort, seconded by Councilmember Blackham. Any comments? Good. Okay, we're gonna go to a vote. Councilmember Barber,
Aye.
Councilmember Lortz,
Aye.
Councilmember Adams,
Hi.
Councilmember Blackham,
Aye.
and Councilmember Tran.
Nay, but only for the same reasons that I stated before, because we have another opportunity to look at everything and get a clearer picture. And I feel like that's a responsible thing to do. So if for me.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
But it's a
Motion-
comment, Mayor. Oh, sorry.
Let me
Finish it.
pass this
Pass it off.
motion passes 4-1. All right,
Wonderful.
Councilmember Barber, your comment.
My comment was going to be, but even though we have a chance to adjust, I think Mike did a really good job helping us send a message now to city staff that you are valued, you are a high priority for us. And for that, I think he is, should be commended. So,
Kudos to you.
and
All
hopefully,
right. Yes.
move on.
All right, thank you all. All right, let's go to item C, rezone of 0.39 acres of property located at 890-914 East, 200 North from R2, 1 to 2 family residential district to RM residential multifamily zoning district and consideration of an improvement agreement. Lyle?
Thank you, Mayor. We're juggling computer back here. I'll get the pretty imagery up here on the screen as well. Bear with me. Okay, yeah, I'd like to show the pictures so that you're gonna have to bear with me to get that up. But so right here you have this piece of property located off of 200 North. You can see it near the Haight Creek retention pond on your screen. And the property, it's actually 2 separate parcels right now. They each include a duplex on each parcel. So there are 4 total units currently. Right now you can see it's in this orangish, I don't know, yellow color on the R2 district, which allows for that 2-family dwelling. Most of it across the street is single family homes. And then you have the irrigation company and their office just down the street on the west. This is what the applicant is ultimately hoping to accomplish. So I'll kind of paint a picture with this in the next few pictures. Is take the darker boxes, their existing duplexes that they have on site, and kind of add on to the buildings and create one large 6-plex unit. And so we talked a little bit about that with him and what that means structurally and building code to accommodate that. But it was the route that our ordinance would allow for him to consider having some extra units on this property. The Planning Commission, as you go back here, considering that, had some concerns about how the existing parking's working in front of the units on 200 North Street. And they were concerned where the street improvements aren't done, if and when we complete those and do any widening or curb gutter, that might impact it. So they wanted us to look at work with the applicant on finding ways to address that issue. So you'll see here, they've proposed actually just pulling the driveways behind the units, creating parking in the rear. So it just completely eliminates that concern along 200 North. And you can see that here with the front driveways in place. This is the existing units in one building. Here you can see multiple buildings. They would actually structurally add on and fill in between those. So again, it gives you kind of a taste of what's there on site today. And what we also looked at with the Planning Commission and their consideration was because there are no street improvements and wouldn't go through a typical subdivision process where it's already developed, just to ensure that those come in play with allowance for additional units on this site. You have before you an ordinance which would accommodate the rezone request, changing it from the R2 to the RM district. So the RM is simply what allows those additional units. Otherwise, they're very similar in the types of usage that are allowed on each property. And then also in your packet has been included an agreement that has been worked on with the applicant for the improvements, the curb, gutter, sidewalk, and street extension that we anticipate in the future. We decided as staff, rather than what our public works staff's dealing with regularly now on trying to collect funds that people agreed to many years ago around town and dealing with it at that time, that we'd prefer to have that taken care of up front. So we wouldn't have them make the installation. We'd wait till we're ready to do a project, do it all together. But the applicant was willing to consent to that as proposed. That would just be taken care of up front, and then they're good whenever we choose to do the 200 North project. So with that, the Planning Commission made recommendation subject to consideration of the parking and the street improvement items with a unanimous vote to forward that favorably to the City Council. I believe our applicant is with us this evening, so we can offer them a chance to speak, and I'd be happy to take any questions as well.
Okay, let's allow our applicant to speak first.
Eric Orton, I show is on here as the applicant. We've just given you permission to speak. If you'd like to, you're live now. You're welcome to talk.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate the council taking serious my proposal here. I believe it's good for both the city and me. Obviously, I wouldn't try if it wasn't, but I think it provides some good higher density, moderate income housing on a pretty major arterial road, close to some Highway 89, good transit stop. So I just appreciate the opportunity and hope it'll get a positive vote.
Okay, thank you so much. Anne Marie, do we have anybody to speak on this item?
We do not.
All right, thank you. All right, we will go to questions from council. All right. Any question? Councilmember Lortz, please.
Lyle, if you can go back to the kind of the second to the last picture that showed the side view there, right? Yeah, no, that one right there. It looks like we've got some elevation. If they're going to do parking around back, how's that going to be accommodated?
I'm planning on just using some fill to build that up. It will be a lot more expensive than the old way of parking just in front, but that's the way I envision it, is putting a retaining wall and some fill in the back.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Let's see. Yes, Councilmember Adams. Sorry, Blackham.
Yeah, on the pictures, I realize they're going to take the money for future to put the curb, gutter, and sidewalk. He's going to pay up front. But right now there shows quite a distance between where his driveway ends and where the asphalt starts. Is he is planning on at least asphalting out to the road. Is that correct?
So the calculations we ran to get those numbers, the idea would be to get the additional asphalt, curb, gutter, and sidewalk based on those numbers. And we ran those in our office based on current costs that we're seeing and including that expected right of way from our public works department. So currently, we're not asking them to put any of those things in. That could be something that if you think the asphalt is prudent to do now, that
Well,
could be
I
canceled.
just don't want that mud spot between 200 North and the driveway. You know, there's got to be something temporarily or something that, so he's not going in and out on the mud every time he goes in and out.
Certainly, we could request that he does that. I think what we put together as staff, it didn't anticipate that. There's some logic to that, council member, and I think we could have that. I don't see that hurting future projects. It's not as major as the concrete work. When
Right.
we're ready to do that. So that could be a reasonable request.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Adams.
Is this the first time this property, maybe Mr. Orton can tell us, this has come before a council? Is this the first time approach to rezoning this area?
It's the first one I'm aware of. I bought I bought one of those duplexes and then the next one. The first one I started buying in '86. And so since then, this is the first time.
And then just my follow-up question, thank you so much for that, I mean, obviously we don't have any people signed up to comment. Lyle, can you tell us, was this something that had to be obligatory notification to the surrounding neighbors?
Yeah, so we did the standard noticing, put up signs, mailed it to property owners within 500 feet. I can't tell you the exact number that it went out to. I had a couple phone calls that I spoke with personally prior to the planning commission meeting, and they were mostly, well, it's already duplex multifamily there that seems to fit. But I don't recall at planning commission that we had comments really one way or the other. So I
don't think you did. So yeah, that would be that was my big thing, was that with COVID and everything that we, people felt notified, and sounds like they did.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? Oh, actually, just questions right now. Just questions. Okay. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion that we approve the rezone of 0.39 acres of property. I have to read the whole thing. All of a sudden, can't see the side. Located at 890-914 East, 200 North, from R2, 1 to 2 family residential district, to RM residential multifamily zoning district, and consideration of an improvement agreement by Mr. Eric Norton. And I would add that under the provision that we have staff look at taking that road or the asphalt all the way to the existing asphalt. Is that correct, Councilmember Blackham?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been moved by, oh, do we have a second? Sorry.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved by Councilmember Adams, seconded by Councilmember Lords. Now, do we have any comments?
I may have a question, Mayor, if I may.
Please.
This is Lyle again on staff. Would it be okay with the council? I suspect as we actually add the asphalt in early, those numbers in the agreement may adjust down slightly because they'll be asked to do less asphalt later. Would that be amicable if there's that adjustment made?
I see nodding heads.
Lyle, I think it's going to be in addition to, because I think when they do finally get the grades and where they get the approaches and the curb and gutter, they'll probably have to tear that out. But I mean, we've always just tried not to have people track mud into the road. So I think it's going to be a temporary deal that the developer's just going to have to incur, so we don't have that problem.
Does it have to be asphalt? Can it not be like crushed rock or something less expensive? If it's just about tracking mud, I just hate to throw an extra cost on to Mr. Orton at the last second here.
There are other non-trackable surfaces, probably not many other than concrete and asphalt that are as reliable in accomplishing that. So if that's the intent, that's probably what we'd go with. And Councilmember Blackham's absolutely right. Yeah, there's tear out and rework that would have to be done. And so it may absolutely be an addition. I don't know if we look at it, because he's right. It's also correct in that it's pretty extensive. There's a lot of width there. Depending on how wide that is, we could calculate how much might be torn out and do a percentage, and it's probably not a big difference where the concrete works the bulk of that additional
Josh
price.
is wanting to make a comment.
Okay, Josh, please.
Sorry, I know this is a little unusual. One idea I had is connecting the existing concrete driveway with some sort of surface to the roadway. I know that still leaves some of the frontage with a permeable surface that could track mud and other debris, but making the actual connection to the driveway that gets vehicles to the back so that it's a minimal amount of pavement or concrete connecting to 200 North. Just a thought.
Yeah, I'd see it just coming off of what Lyle's pointing there, just from the parking driveways, connecting that to 200 North. I don't think you have to do the whole green space in the middle.
Okay. All right. Lyle, do you think you have enough direction on that?
That makes it clear. So we'll keep those numbers the same. If assuming the vote passes, that
Okay.
maybe our understanding is the driveways and where that regular access will be pavement or concrete all the way out to the existing street. And we'll work with them to accomplish that.
Okay. Any other comments at this time? All right, we're going to go to a vote. It's going to Councilmember Lortz first.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Orton. Okay. All right, now we will go to rezone of 1.17 acres of property located at 650 North Main from general commercial to residential multifamily zoning district for destination homes. Lyle?
Thank you, Mayor. I know the applicant is also here on this one this evening, so I'll give an introduction. I'll probably try and keep it more brief regarding the zoning district specifically, then allow them to speak more to their project. The property on the corner of Mutton Hollow and Main Streets on the the southeast side of that intersection near Tasty's Donuts, probably the best point of reference for myself. And it's in currently the general commercial zone. So you can see all the red along up and down Main Street, our commercial areas. Some of that used for housing north of Mutton Hollow. Some of it's not developed yet, but the rest of it are stores and shops and things that we have in town. And the property, which encompasses just over a little over an acre, the current applicant has been working with the seller on proposing a residential product. Essentially, it is a townhome type development that wraps around a central parking area. So you have green space and front doors at the street, cars access the property off of Mutton Hollow, just east of the intersection into the property. And I'll let them speak a little bit more to the arrangement, the homes. I've always got to pull up the chart here within it. And I think they're looking at potential about 16 units total, according to this on site. So what's before you this evening doesn't necessarily speak directly to this project in the sense that the RM zone would allow for the proposed density and the number of homes that they're suggesting to develop in this matter. If the council is on board with the proposal to go residential and pursue such a product, they would require a PRUD overlay zone, and we'd have to go through different approvals of that. That would allow the type of arrangement, ownership, and common open space that generally this goes to. So this is the applicant's first step in saying, are the number of homes and is this type of use okay? And then if so, at least as staff, we would recommend we come back later with the additional details and perhaps pursue a development agreement and subdivision process. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this and ultimately voted 5-2 in favor of passing this along to the City Council. It was the opinion of the majority as they voted that this was a good spot based on the general plan up against major streets to allow for additional density that fit in and was cohesive with some of the surrounding uses and neighborhood that have homes that are similar to this. The others who voted against it, there are two, cited that they think the city needs to hold on to the commercial property for providing amenities and potential tax base to the city, and also cited that the general plan states we need to disperse our housing density throughout town. So they felt that shouldn't all be here in this neck of the woods. So with that, I'll pass along that recommendation from the Planning Commission. Again, that 5-2 in favor of the proposal. Reminded the council that the applicant's here also to speak more to the project, and be happy to answer any questions that you have as we go through this tonight.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from the applicant first.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here tonight. My name is John Warnick. I am a fellow Kaysville resident, and I am the Vice President of Land for Destination Homes. Destination Homes this evening is requesting to rezone 1.17 acres, or approximately 0.037% of the total land area within Kaysville, from general commercial to multiple family residential to allow us to build 16 townhome units. Destination Homes was established in 2002 by David Bailey and Brad Wilson, two childhood next door neighbors. Our mission is to improve lives by building exceptional homes in lasting communities. We accomplish this by developing strategic partnerships with local cities and municipalities, quality contractors and consultants, giving priority to unique architectural design, and incorporating sustainable land planning principles. Kaysville Plan of Additional Moderate Income Housing, as adopted in the November 2019 General Plan, lists 9 goals and policies as the way Kaysville will provide a realistic opportunity for development of a variety of housing, including moderate income housing. On that plan, that states approximately 15% of the additional housing should be moderate income housing. Kaysville will continue to use the following means and techniques to provide a realistic opportunity for development of a variety of housing, including moderate income housing. The 4 points that we feel that we best fit into are: 1, the zoning properties town site, single family, diverse residential, 2-family residential, 1 to 4 family residential, and what we're asking for tonight, multi-family residential housing. Number 2, clustering in residential areas. Number 7 is allow for higher density or moderate income residential development in commercial and mixed use zones, commercial centers, or employment centers. And number 9 states rezone for densities necessary to assure the production of moderate income housing. One area of focus the last 2 to 3 years for Destination Homes has been finding innovative ways to bring moderate income housing to the market that provides an opportunity for first-time home buyers to enjoy the benefits of home ownership. This site provides us with one such opportunity. One of the frustrations that we hear from local Kaysville residents is the lack of moderate income housing that their children can purchase that will allow them to stay in Kaysville. There are not many options, if any, for those grown children to purchase a first home in Kaysville to raise their family in this great city. One of the most admirable qualities that I have seen since moving to Kaysville is the number of families who want to stay in close proximity to each other and want their children and grandchildren to grow up here and to go to the same schools that their parents and grandparents went to. This project is one such opportunity. The question you should be asking yourself tonight isn't whether you rezone this property from general commercial to multifamily residential. It is, do our children have an opportunity to buy a home, raise their family, and be able to call Kaysville their hometown? The second item I'd like to mention tonight, based on the budget discussion, is the impact fees that Kaysville City will receive from this project, if my numbers are correct, is approximately $56,000 based on the July 1st, 2020 consolidated fee schedule. The information we have provided to you tonight shows to you the commitment that we have to the city to improve lives by building exceptional homes and lasting communities. We respectfully request that the City Council approve our rezoning application this evening. I look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you. All right, Council. First, Anne Marie. I want to make mention that we had many public comments come in specifically to this project, as well as a letter from the current landowner. Do we have anybody, Anne Marie, scheduled to speak to this item?
So I got an email about 5, a little after 5, from one of the people in the attendees. His name's Robert Parker. I told him the cutoff was at 4 o'clock, so he might not be able to speak. So if you decide to not let him speak, that's up to you, but
I'll allow it. Let's, if he is here, let's hear him.
I see Robert's able to speak. If he hears this, he should be able to.
I think Robert is muted, so if he could unmute, or if we could unmute him. There we go. Are you there, Robert? Robert? Are you there?
if he doesn't respond, he did send an email as well, so.
Okay, all right, okay. And we did, I'm sure that we all read the emails and appreciate people taking the time to reach out about this issue. Okay, so we will go to, if Robert should show up, let me know. All right, any questions at this time? Questions from council at this time? Councilmember Lords, please.
If Lyle or Mr. Warnick can answer the parking inside the facility for guests and or additional vehicles, and are they 2-car garage? It looks like on the drawing.
Yes, Councilmember Lords, that is correct. They are 2-car garages.
And how many public or guest parkings would be included in that?
Within that total parking, I believe there's, I think 10 to 12. I'd have to do a count on that, but as of right now, the site plan shows that is what we can fit for guest parking.
I have a question.
Councilmember Tran.
Thank you. So how affordable are these, or will these be? Do you have any price points on these properties?
Yeah, we're currently right now looking at starting these in the basically 250 to 275 range of starting prices. We're currently settling this same kind of design and architecture up in Layton, and we're selling anywhere from those when they're all done about 275 to 300 when people finish design options.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Questions? Okay. No questions. Let's go. I'll entertain a motion at this time. Okay, guys.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
Okay, go Councilmember Tran.
Okay, I will, so there's really no discussion on this. Okay, I'm trying to scroll up here to get to it.
There's discussion, but I don't think there's no questions.
No questions, that's correct. So we need a motion and then we can have comments.
Okay, let me find which one it is. This is, okay, so I make a motion. Okay, I'll make a motion that we don't approve the rezone of 1.17 acres of property located at 650 North Main from general construction or general commercial to the RM residential multifamily zoning district.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Tran, seconded by Councilmember Blackham. Now let's go to comments. Councilmember Tran, would you like to start it off?
Yes, so I think this is a fantastic project. We all know Destination Homes, makes great homes, and I love the neighborhoods, and I love the architecture and everything about the products that Destination Homes provides. The reason that I don't feel I would like to pass this, or I feel comfortable passing this, is because I don't think that this project, I don't think it's necessarily the best use. And I realize the arguments are out there that the property's been for sale for 20 years and nobody's looked at it. And I understand that, but I would really like to see it stay general commercial because as we're updating our general plan, and I've been involved in all of these processes in terms of getting public input and everything else for the general plan, we've all supported, well, those that I've worked with have supported the idea that Main Street remains commercial. That's the theme, that's the plan forward, that's what we've wanted to do. And we've had a lot of public input as well to kind of say, okay, where would you like multifamily, where would you like commercial? And it's remained pretty consistent from what I've seen and the feedback that I've received. And the general plan update isn't complete yet, but that we really try to preserve Main Street so that we have a commercial center for the city. And that's why I feel that I would really like to see it stay general commercial along Main Street.
Thank you. All right, other comments? Councilmember Blackham.
I agree with Councilmember Tran. I really appreciate what the councils previous have done to try to maintain and keep this a commercial area, because there's a really important portion of this area of the city that's just across the street. And I think as a council, we can all envision a light eventually coming to Mutton Hollow and Main Street there. And I think once that develop, and I've always said, commercial doesn't develop right away. It takes time, it takes the right use, it takes other properties filling in. But for Kaysville, I can't think of a more important intersection right now to remain commercial than Mutton Hollow and Main Street because of what the potential we have here in the future. And once it goes away, you never get it back. And so that's why I'm very adamant about keeping it in a general commercial. And I see the vision that the previous councils had, and I agree with them.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Adams. You're muted.
Yeah,
there you are. Yeah.
I just had to find that unmute button. Well, I appreciate the presentation also from Mr. Warnick, and again, my wife and I bought our first home right there on that street. It's 600 West, which is that first left turn after you turn onto Mutton Hollow, and to either age me or show the way affordable homes have gone, is that was our first home, and it was $160,000. And I think it was 3,000 square feet and on 0.2 acres. So yeah, for me, I think that one of the most important things that we got as far as feedback from residents, and I was able to agree with them because I lived there for 10 years, is that it's already very, very crowded as far as residents there, and there does need to be a disbursement. So that would be my 2 cents on top of what everybody else has said.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember Lortz, please.
So, this is very interesting. Everybody wants to quote the general plan, and it contradicts itself, because it asks us to keep everything consistent in neighborhoods, but disperse diversity throughout the city. And as we all know, anytime that a multifamily unit is proposed in any neighborhood, adjacent to any neighborhood, everybody screams. It says, not in my neighborhood, put it somewhere else, and they're happy when it's not by them. And so, I mean, I think we're always have that conflict no matter what the general plan says. And that we also have to consider not all commercial, just because it's commercially zoned does not mean that it's commercially viable. And, we've seen that in Kaysville, that we've had commercial property that is very, very difficult. It doesn't have the access. I know that as was mentioned in the communications we had, our company had been approached about that, and we had declined, saying it's a C site at best. It is not an A site. We would not develop there. There's not the right traffic patterns, especially since the freeway moved over the interchange to Layton Parkway and severely impaired the traffic flow through that area. So I think, we have some tough choices. The one thing I'll say is I do believe that once you take something out of commercial does not mean you'll never get commercial back, because we and other people have always looked at if it's the right location. Commercial properties, people will come in and try to get it zoned commercial and change a high density or a high traffic area that is very viable for a commercial business. So I think, we have to be careful. We don't have a lot of opportunities in Kaysville to put multifamily affordable housing. And the more we say no to it around the city, the harder it's going to get any of it in the city. And so I think we really have to figure out how to balance that turmoil of keeping commercial, but also finding a place for multifamily. And I don't know where we're going to put it. And I know we've got the heat map from the general plan discussions with the community, but I'm pretty sure that anywhere we proposed it throughout the city would have a big uproar of, don't put it here. It'll decrease my property values. It's going to create traffic jams. We hear the same arguments over and over. And so I don't know the right answer. I wish I did. I wish it was a simple answer, but it's not.
Okay. Councilmember Barber.
I would just say I agree with all the perspectives that have been shared. As we talk about this need for more affordable housing, more diversity in housing, I think this council and previous council has made a lot of steps to show we really are embracing that. We're understanding. I feel like we're understanding probably a little later than we should have, because I see this need right in the forefront, just like I know a lot of other people do. And we're looking at other options. We're approving types of homes that never would have been considered before. And I'm actually really glad about that. But I also feel like this area in particular, I've had my eye on watching with city staff for 2+ years, and there's a lot to be improved there. The road is going to be improved. I know Josh is on, he can maybe speak to it a little bit. That road is very much going to be improved. Possibility of a light going in there. Well, it's not even a possibility. The light will go in there. It will change. It will improve. So I think there's still some unknowns. We don't really know what this is going to shape up to be. And I think Councilmember Tran made a really good point that we can make an investment in saying we want to see something done here, and this is not exactly it. This is not the right time. And Destination Homes, I feel like you can't ask for a better community partner. The developments they've built in Kaysville have been great. People love them. There's a huge demand for them. I told somebody I helped my brother buy a townhome in Kaysville, and it is like, a full-time job, just making sure you can get them when they come available, because there's not enough. So other parts of the city, I think we're really open to that happening.
All right, thank you. All right, any other comments? Okay, and as I feel obligated as the only East Side member of council to speak up and say that, we have, and I think that Councilmember Lortz kind of alluded to this, is that, we have loaded all of our affordable housing on the East Side at this point. And so it's, and I know that we we want to have people be able to afford to live everywhere in the city, and have options available. We do need to take seriously density and increasing density in Kaysville, but and balanced with the commercial, though. I think that's if I were to vote, I probably would. I'm not going to put my thumb on the scale. I'm not going to say anything. I've said enough already, but we've had a motion, a second. I think we're ready for a vote, and it is Councilmember Adams first.
Hey, will you restate her motion really quick? Just want to be clear.
It is to deny.
Deny. Okay.
Deny.
All right.
Okay. All right. So Councilmember Adams first.
Aye.
Councilmember Blackham.
You're on mute, Mike.
I never know if Ryan's muting me or if I'm muting me.
All right. Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
And Councilmember Lortz.
Since I'm in turmoil, I'm going to say nay.
Okay. All right. Motion passes 4-1. Okay. And the motion is it will not be rezoned at this time. All right. Thank you.
I think Councilmember Tran has a question.
Yes, Councilmember Tran, please.
My phone's almost dead, so I'm going to switch to the iPad. If I go away, that's why, and I'll be right back.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks.
All right. We are moving on to an ordinance amending Chapter 17-33 sign regulations of Title 17 Planning and Zoning of the revised ordinances of Kaysville City. Lyle.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is one that came about with the Planning Commission, where typically every year we'll go out as staff and we try and follow up on some of our new developments, and they have all their for sale signs are coming soon with all their lots. And typically those go through the Planning Commission for a look over and review. They'll allow them temporarily, often for a year, sometimes it's longer. And we had one just recently where the Planning Commission approved several of them. And their question to staff was, we've not put any conditions on any of these. If they're meeting the height requirements, the size requirements, if they're positioned such that they're not blocking and obstructing traffic views, we're just not doing anything as a commission much other than rubber stamping the approvals on them. So they asked us to come up with an ordinance that will still keep those regulations in place and deal with the size and height and location requirements, but wouldn't require that it go before the Planning Commission for their consideration. So this ordinance you have in your packet accomplishes that. It makes it a permitted use. We will still look at them at staff level when we handle them. Essentially, once we've finished building permits and occupancy on the homes within that subdivision, then we would ask them to take those signs down, and that's how we would regulate their time frame. There's one other change to it that's separate from that as we're looking at it. There's a development type sign that's allowed to be, I think it was 20 feet previously that we reduced down to 12 feet in height as the other portion of the change of the ordinance. Planning Commission is unanimous in their recommendation to approve it as proposed. They held a public hearing on it, which there were no comments from the public. And with that, I'll turn it to the council for their consideration and be happy to take questions.
Thank you. All right. Any questions at this time? Oh, you know what? I need to ask Anne Marie, did anybody wish to speak to this item?
No, we had nobody sign up.
Okay. All right. Any questions from council on this? Okay, I'm looking for hands. I do not see any hands. Okay, let's go with please a motion on this then.
I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance amending Chapter 17-33 sign regulations of Title 17 Planning and Zoning of the revised ordinances of Kaysville City.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Lortz and seconded by Councilmember Adams. Any comments at this time? No comments. All right, let's go for it then.
Did we lose Councilmember Tran? I don't
She's
see
here.
her.
She is here.
Am I here? Okay.
She's
You're
in the
here.
building.
She is in the house. All right. So let's go to Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
Councilmember Lortz.
Aye.
Councilmember Adams
Aye.
and Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Motion is unanimous. Thank you. All right, moving on. An ordinance amending section 17-34-7 common open space subdivision of chapter 17-34 PRUD planned residential unit development of title 17 planning and zoning of revised ordinances of Kaysville City. Lyle.
Thank you, Mayor. So this again is something that we found actually as staff as we were going over ordinances recently. Not very many months ago, the City Council approved a new residential zoning district, the R16 zone. It's essentially allowed for consideration of some smaller lot development where we had a gap in between an R18 at about 5 units an acre to an R2 that doubled to about 10. And so that R16 kind of filled the difference there at about 6-7 units an acre to allow some different variations in development types. And where there are different sections of the ordinance to speak to how that can be done, but nothing was added to the PRUD section at that time. And within that, there's a chart that shows all the different zones and states the base density that would be allowed for each. And this simply adds that to that section of the ordinance. Does not guarantee the use of that chapter or the implementation of that zone, but simply gives it to the council as an option when considering development types in the future within that. So again, the Planning Commission held the public hearing on this, had no comments to it, but voted unanimously to forward a recommendation to the council for its consideration in favor of approving.
All right. And Anne Marie, do we have anybody to speak to this item?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to questions from council. Any questions? Okay, we've worn you down. Okay, Councilmember Adams.
Councilmember Adams clearly has a question.
Hello, look at my big hand.
He's still going strong.
Oh yeah. I got my fizz.
And it's a local business.
Oh yeah. 2 ways. In fact, a fizz right there. Anyway, hey Lyle, I just am curious. What brought this up? I mean, maybe you explained it, but I need maybe more layman's terms. Like, why are we doing this? I mean, what kind of sparked this? It would be my question, because I saw it in here. I just didn't really know what.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact development was under consideration, but we've been looking quite a bit with our PRUD overlay zone of recent, different projects. And it was just noticed at that time that it was not part of the table. It lists every single other one of our residential districts. And just as new as it was, we figured we'd follow up and clean that up to add this as another option as part of that. It was a staff finding on it as we've been looking at the ordinance for other developments.
So it's, yeah, I mean, it's not like, I mean, I just want to make sure that's not something that we're amending this so that then next week something comes in that says, hey, you amended that and now we can do X, Y, and Z. There's no hidden agenda here. I'm not saying that staff would have a hidden agenda per se, but I just didn't know where it came from was all.
Yeah, I can't promise that will happen because I have their developers watch what we do.
I've been reading too much. I've been watching too much news apparently and looking
Conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy
I'm telling
theories.
you.
Sorry,
it's the
Lyle.
deep state. It's the deep city
Deep state.
right here.
Yeah, I can't promise that won't happen because I have had calls asking, why is the city considering this when they saw it on the planning commission agenda. So we initiated it from staff. I'm not positive what development may or may not follow and how quickly after. But yeah, this was something that came out of our findings as we've been using it for other developments. And conspiracy or not, yeah, I've heard interest in what we're doing from developers because they often follow that planning commission agenda, and anything that they think could work for something they have in mind, they'll follow up on. So stay tuned.
Adams,
so,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say to that point, maybe you could tell me or give me sort of, I mean, you guys are the experts, sort of an understanding of what this would allow. I just feel like when we approve it, I would like to know maybe what this would allow in the future, that when we look back, we're like, oh man, we should have maybe taken a closer look at what we were amending here. Thanks, Nick. Yeah.
Hey, Lyle, before you answer that, can I just say one thing to Councilmember Adams' concern?
Please.
So one nice thing about this amendment is, even if there are, and I don't think staff is aware of any pending conspiracy type issues coming up, but if there were, this would allow for a rezone. And at a rezone, the council has legislative authority, broad authority to review that and decide whether they want to approve that or not. They have broad discretion. And because this is being added to the PRUD, which is requires a rezone and an overlay, to add that PRUD, you would have broad discretion. You're not going to sign off on this today and get hoodwinked tomorrow, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That gives me sort of the feeling of relief knowing that it's, well, you answer my question. Awesome. Thank you, Nick.
All right, great. Okay, there is that question answered. Any other questions? Okay, let's have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve and amend an ordinance amending section 17-34-7 common open space subdivision of chapter 17-34 PRUD planned residential unit development of title 17 planning and zoning of the revised ordinances of Kaysville City.
So item F then, moving
Nice
item
job.
F.
Hey, I didn't quite hear that. Could Councilmember Barber
All right,
please?
would you like to second that, Councilmember Adams?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. All right. All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Barber and seconded by Councilmember Adams. And any other comments at this time? Councilmember Blackham, please.
The only thing I wanted to comment on is, at first I thought that's no big deal. It's just taking care of something. But then I realized, by going to the R16 zone, it already cuts it down to lower setbacks, smaller lots. Now you do the PRUD overlay zone, you can put a private road in there. I don't even know how small of a lot you could get in there now. And so I realized the densities would have to stay the same, but maybe the R16 is one of those things where it should be on a public street. It should be 6,000 square feet if it's going to have all these other things that it has already put into that zone, where people try to take the PRUD and use those in the other zones where the densities aren't quite so good. So at first I didn't think it was that big a deal, that might be one of the, and I still am not sure whether it's that big a deal to vote against it or not, but I can see how somebody would try to use this to their advantage to do something. I don't know. It's kind of like you're taking the minimum zone and you're almost letting them make it even more minimum.
And you still get to deny it if you don't like it. Councilmember Barber.
That was actually my question. Does it guarantee a private street with a PRUD?
Maybe I'll speak to that, Councilmember Barber. So no, it does not guarantee anything for a developer. So it gives the council still its complete discretion. It's a rezone just like your last ones. You get to decide if it's appropriate at that location, if it coordinates with the general plan. And yeah, we would just defer to ultimately your decision on it. What we've done in the past on a couple, maybe one of the triggers to me we've essentially approved a couple R16 type subdivisions, Deseret Drive near Smith's, but we've done it under an R2 zone, both of them as PRUDs. So we can still get the densities that developers want under this.
Yeah.
We just do it under a zone that.
Well, and
could-
then what
That's
makes
kind
this nice is then you look at a zoning map and you know exactly what it is. Because I might see the other zone at a high level and then drive by and go, wait, that's not matching. So I think this gives it a more clear pattern to follow through the city.
Very good. Okay. All right. So let's go to a vote, shall we? And it is Councilmember Barber first.
Aye.
Councilmember Lords.
Aye.
Ready,
Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
Councilmember Blackham.
Aye.
Councilmember Tran.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, I think that is the end of our action items. All right, now we will go to call to the public. Anne-Marie, do we have anybody?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. All right, then let's go to council member reports. Councilmember Barber.
All right. I already alluded to my biggest report from Parks and Rec, which is the worst report I think I can give right now. Probably not the worst. I'll retract that, but it's not fun from Parks and Rec that we are greatly changing our 4th of July programming, mostly due to mass gatherings not really being permitted or being issued permits by Davis County Health Department at this time. So we're not planning on fireworks or the parade, sadly. Really big bummer. Or the 5K, breakfast, block
I have
party.
a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you a question about that? So as I was looking through the budget, thinking, okay, where could we possibly cut or save money so that we can, do the cost of living increases and stuff? Have we prepaid for those 4th of July expenses, or is that money that can be recirculated in some way?
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to when we talked about the budget. It's kind of a thing because the 4th of July falls 4 days after the fiscal year starts.
Oh,
and
okay,
so
gotcha.
is already paid for, or we paid for last year. So we're going to adjust it, and there is going to be. We've already paid for our fireworks, and it's being rolled over to 2021, but there is other money there. So that's part of what we'll bring to the final budget proposal of how much we're going to save. And I actually feel like taking that as residents and saying, it's not a good idea, and it's a way of saving money, so we can put it somewhere more beneficial. Right now, I'm willing to do that. Is not fun as it is. So, rec program's the same. They pretty much all been canceled through the month of May. June tentatively has a few things planned if we're able. So we're just holding on. Parks are open, pickleball's open, and strong recommendation to just keep a safe distance. And so far, I see a lot of people out enjoying this gorgeous weather. So that makes me happy. Can I give one more update?
Yes.
We had the request for proposals come back for our fiber project that I updated on last week. And we had some great proposals. They're actually going to be published to everyone with the cost scoring by tomorrow on the Connect Kaysville website. So everybody can go and see them. And it was really encouraging. So thank you for all being part of that. And we'll keep updating how we're moving along this timeline.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lords, do you have anything to report today?
Nothing for today.
Okay. Councilmember Adams, anything?
No, thank you though.
Councilmember Blackham?
Not really. Just sat down with Lyle and Jeff and Dan the other day and asked them how things were going. They said they're busy as ever and things are moving along, and you barely know there's any kind of a slowdown.
All right, Councilmember Tran.
Just that we've got an excellent planning commission. The discussions are really good. The questions that they ask are really good. They're doing a good job as far as following, you know, the information that they have to rely on, and they're just really invested in planning commission, and so I appreciate all that they're doing.
All right, thank you. I will just mention in our last Monday's update from the Davis County Health Department, we found out that we have the rate of infection continues to decline. It's been down 4 weeks in a row. Kaysville has had 18 cases total, no deaths. And so things we're doing well, and we want to keep that going. So we are moving into the soft opening, and encourage people to, while you're out and about, please observe, you know, social distancing, wear a mask, or stay 6 feet away. I think everybody knows the drill at this point, but just wanted to just give that update on that. And city manager report, anything tonight?
Mayor, not really anything to report, but I did wonder what you thought, and that maybe the council thought about the meetings we might have in the future. I think we were planning from a staff level to at least have one more Zoom meeting in May, and then perhaps we could transition to a face-to-face in June if things continue in a positive direction, but I wanted to get your feedback on that.
Okay. I am willing to do whatever everybody else wants to do. I love Zoom meetings because I can see all your faces and I don't have to like look around. but you also miss a lot, you know, just when and he's forever. Yes, I understand.
I would love for us to be able to meet again together.
Yeah. Back in the day, when I used to go to council meetings in person before I was ever on council, and people was like, you can watch that on YouTube, you know, I'm like, yeah, but you miss a lot. You miss a lot that's going on in the room, if you're just seeing the stationary camera. And similarly, I miss interacting with you guys. So
I would say what I miss, and I don't know if this would be possible right away, but I do miss having that time before to interact with residents that want to come. That's more casual and not part of the meeting. And I know that might be hard. We'll have to limit numbers, probably even in June. I don't know. But that is the part that you really just can't replicate fully in this format.
Difficult.
Shane, isn't it the next level, if we do go to yellow, is going to be a limit of 50 people in a gathering? And so that still could create some challenges. And the new city hall renovation is not looking positive to be done even by beginning of July.
Right, not by the first.
Nope. We're hoping by August, but
yes.
We should. But 50 people. That's quite a few.
Okay. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that we're not sure if Davis Tech is going to invite us back. You know, they will have to work that out. So that's one of the things that we'll have to deal with. But if possible, we would like to get the band back together again. So, all right. Is that Shane? Is that?
It's clear as mud. We can probably talk about it more next week, but I
don't know that gave.
Yeah, I didn't hear any clear direction there, but even at Orange, we're confined to 20 people, but they're still supposed to socially distance themselves. It's not like 20 can just sit there. So
right.
We'll reach out to Davis Tech and see what their thoughts are for next meeting on the 21st. But I guess our thought was, let's just do this one more time, and then I think the governor's changes to OMA, the Open Meetings Act, extended until the end of June, if I'm not mistaken. So we could make some accommodations. Even if we met in person, we could probably do so without having members of the public there. So that's kind of what I thought is, let's do this one more time in May. Maybe our meetings in June would be without the public, but in person. And then hopefully July, we're back to normal.
Well, and to your point, Shane, that and Andre's a numbers guy, he could probably do this for us, but 6 feet with 6 of us up there, I mean, you'd need a giant panoramic TV. We need to get into a room that's really wide.
Cause Ryan some
Can you
headache.
put that in volume for me? You know?
Yeah, what's
Maybe
the
we could,
radius
like,
there?
stack people.
I guess we could do it like the Knights of the Round Table, and it has a camera that just spins around. But
Councilmember Lords will have a spreadsheet out to us by tonight that shows how all this will happen.
sounds like just do this again in May at least and plan for June.
Yes.
You know?
That's what we were thinking.
I did want to say the mayors of Davis County got together on a Zoom last week, and this was one of the questions that we talked about, and how other communities are doing it. And I believe that the mayors were thinking through the summer that they would be doing Zoom. Mayor Petro from Layton, she is not they're not doing Zoom meetings right now. They're having in-person meetings, and they have people come in one at a time if they want to speak to council. So they allow one person to come in and do public comment and then leave. So anyway, so they do have, we're creative. We can make this work. So so if we could talk to Davis Tech, see if it is possible to get that wonderful space back, because that was a really good location, and we promise to behave if they let us. So, all right. Okay. All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd move we adjourn.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Virtual high five.